Okay.
Hey friends, my name is Angela Harry and I am Sapphire Ambassador with Plexus Worldwide, and I'm coming to you with some of my amazing teammates to talk to you about follow-up and what that means. And we're talking about follow-up after somebody has started the products, after you've gone through all of the questions to make sure that you are getting them on the right products. And if you want to know how to do that, we actually have another video that we did where we walk you through a lot of the questions that you would want to ask to make sure that you're starting that relationship right and setting those expectations right. So once you've set the expectations and started them on the products you think are going to help them the most, there's an entire process that you need to make sure that you're partnering with people as you get them on the products and you stick with them through the process so that they have amazing results. And we were just talking about how the reality is, for those of you that are watching this video because you're building a business, the reality is you don't have a team and you don't have a business if you don't have people getting good results on the products. And these products can and do change lives all the time. So we really want to help you to figure out how to navigate that territory. So I'm going to quickly let my friends introduce themselves, and then we're going to hear from Chandra Sherman, who's going to talk to us about her amazing follow-up process because she's kind of a master at it, and so I'm learning from her. So you want to introduce yourselves?
All right.
We're young.
Yeah, we didn't plan that. Go ahead, Amber.
I'm Amber Young, Senior Gold Ambassador.
And I'm Wendy Stauffer. I'm an Emerald Ambassador. And I do want to say that of the four of us here, Chandra has been with us the shortest amount of time, but yet she has an amazing way of following up and working to get great results for her clients. And that's why we've asked her especially to do this for you. So.
Yeah, well, I probably should have said something to that effect too, and I'm glad that you did. Chandra actually was somebody who came into the business and in a very short time earned our Leaders Retreat that our company does. And the only way that you can do that is through earning the credits that that are from signing people up as customers and as ambassadors as well. So that's something that she obviously did very, very well and has continued to succeed ever since then. So we really want you to hear from her.
All right. So I sort of want to start by just talking about my philosophy of follow-up, and sort of, it took me a little bit of frustration to get to this point. So I want to start by just giving you permission to spend the time to follow up with your people and to love on them and to follow up on them. And I mean, obviously keep doing your IPA, keep reaching out, keep posting on Facebook, doing the things to bring in more customers. But one of the most important ways to build confidence in yourself, to make sure you're coming from a posture of saying, yes, new people, I can help you. I know how to do this because I've done it before, is to really dig in deep and take care of the people that you have. So if you've ever felt, sort of those rumblings of feeling guilty like I have, I'm giving you permission to spend your time on the people that are using the products now. And it's okay to prioritize getting them really good results and spending time there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to walk you through my process. It's a lot. But it's what I do and it's where I spend my time, and sort of you can just pick and choose from it what works for you. And ladies, feel free to chime in and ask questions too. So if you watch the other video, you did all the intake, and all that intake is super important. So you have lots of information about the people you're working with. And then once they place an order, as soon as they place that order, I send them a welcome email. And that includes information about our Facebook groups. I tell them that they exist and that I'm going to welcome them and they should check them out. I tell them to put a phone reminder in their phone for 2 days before their subscription will flip. I give them information on how to log in to their website. You would be amazed how many people never log into their website until 11:58 on the night their beans order is going to ship and they need to change it. So if you give them that information ahead of time, that can be really helpful. And then usually the very next day, I used to sort of try to track packages and figure out when they would get there, but now sometimes they get there really quickly. So the very next day, I send another message telling them how to take their products. And also the other thing I want to add is that every single time I talk to people, I try to slide in a different way of telling them you're stuck with me. And I don't say it that way, but I sort of try to, every single time I say, my favorite part about Plexus is that it comes with your very own helper. That's me. Or the next, or I'll tell them, the next email we're going to receive from me is information on how to take your products. And at the end, I'll say, the more you stay in touch with me, the better progress you'll have or whatever. I try to say it not just once, but sort of pepper it in as often as I can. So in that second email, I send them instructions on what to do. And I give them a little bit, just a very tiny blurb about each product they're taking. So if it's slim, I'll just tell them, this is what we're looking for. You see, take it in 12 to 20 ounces of water. I have people start out really slowly. And so I tell them how to take a half a packet of slim, tell them there's a full teaspoon in the stick. So the proper way to do that is to measure out a half teaspoon, all of that. Tell them how to take BioCleanse, how to take ProBio 5, all of that. I always mention drinking water. I tell them that's hugely important. Tell them how much they need to take and emphasize that even if you think you're a big drinker, you have to track it because every day will be different. You might be a good drinker when you're at work, but not when you're home with your kids or whatever it is. So I emphasize them tracking their water and I give them a couple suggestions, like sometimes the name of an app or just the trick where you put, a couple rubber bands on your water bottle because you figure out that you need 3 of those and you take them off, whatever it is. So I'll give them a couple ideas. And then again, I tell them, keep in touch with me. I want to know, how you're doing. And I ask them to tell me when their products arrive. And I say that, but I also track it in my back office. So I sort of know when it arrives. So when I know their products arrive, I have a little planner that is just for Plexus. Like my kids' appointments don't go in here. My massages don't go in here. It's just for Plexus. And so if I know that Susie's Triplex is coming on Friday, or actually here's an example. So I know this woman, Victoria, got her products this day. So I counted 2 days and I wrote Victoria starts half slim. And so I know she's going to drink half her slim that day. And so I'll reach out to her. And then I counted 4 days and then I know she's going to try her first full slim on this day. And so I sort of know where they're going to be and I put it in my calendar so I remember and I can just look real quick and say, like sometimes it'll say Aaron poop or it'll say, if I know someone's increasing to 2 ProBio 5 on Wednesday, on the next Tuesday, I'll, reach out to them and sort of ask them how they're doing. So that's my calendar. And I'll talk in a minute about what I ask them when I follow up. But the other things that I do when someone very first signs on is I have 2 different boxes of cards. And they're just like generic cards. This one says smile and it's totally blank on the inside. So I have these cards and when people first sign up, I take 2 envelopes and I write their name and address on them and I put them back in the box. And then what I do with those is the white envelopes at 30 days, I will send them a little note. And it's very quick. I just say, I'm thankful for you. I always say something like, I'm honored that you chose me to help you through this journey. I'll say something like, the magic is in consistency and patience, just sort of like giving them that, keep going, you're doing okay. And then at 60 days, I'll send them a second one and just, keep encouraging them and that sort of thing. And what I also do in those notes is I have samples. So I have Ease Cream and I have Body Cream, and I'll send them an Ease Cream at 30 days and a Body Cream at 60 days. And it's just a nice thing to do, but it also, by that time, sort of it gives them an inkling there's other products, and so they might, add them to their list as well.
That was absolutely awesome. I'm telling you, so many people are just going to be so grateful that you gave them that visual description of what to do and how to do it, that they just kind of struggle with what the formula is or how to follow up with people. That was so awesome.
And it's the little things that make it easy. Like I used to have these 2 lists and try to remember who got a 30-day card and who got a 60-day card. When I write out the brown envelope and the white envelope, and I don't send them out at exactly 60 days, maybe I do it once a week. And so when I sit down, whoever has an envelope in that box, I know they haven't gotten one yet.
Can I say something to this? That wasn't planned for this, what we were going to talk about, because I know how people think, and I think it's very important to bring this up. A lot of times when people hear us talk about what we do and the process that we go through, in the back of some people's mind is, yeah, but I'm busy. I have really busy days. I don't have time to do things like that. And I think it's really important that I won't try to tell you what Chandra's life looks like. I'll let her do that. But she's probably busier. And I always considered myself one of the busiest people. Anyone who knew me said, you are literally one of the busiest families that I know. And I worked this business into it. I didn't retire from my job until I was a senior Ruby. So I was working 50 hours a week at that point, 2 kids in travel sports, all of that. I think it's important, given that Chandra just gave you those tips, that she tell you a little bit about how busy her days are, because she's a busy lady.
I could do that. So
yeah, just so they don't excuse themselves out of it, right?
Sure. So I have 2 kids whom I homeschool them both. My daughter is deafblind, so I'm her lead therapist, and I coordinate all of her care and her interpreters and her therapists, and she has quite a few of them, and so I drive her there and, manage all of the doctor's appointments and all of that. I also run 2 other businesses in addition to Plexus. I have a bodywork business that I see clients, and I have an herbal medicine business. I'm actually up in my lab right now. If I lean, you can see some of my bottles back there. But I still maintain those businesses. I live on a property where I live in a main house, and I have a 3-car garage, and my parents live in the apartment above, and they're getting older. So I manage my dad's medications, and I manage their doctor's appointments. And I have a husband and a cat. I guess that's.
Yeah. But that really, I mean, was important. I'm so glad you're willing to share all that. I didn't want to try to speak for you, because sometimes people just think, I can't, that's too much to do and I'm too busy, but you can.
You can. It's just about finding processes that work for you. You know what I mean? And I think we can all get wrapped up in the minutia. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I want a new, I don't know, I want a new planner, or I want a new IPA checkoff list. I'm going to spend 45 minutes, in Word making my IPA checkoff list. Just go talk to people. You know what I mean? Like, just find a way. Like, this envelope system really literally saves me the most giant amount of time. And I don't have to think about it. I don't have to worry about who hasn't gotten an envelope, or it's, when you have processes that work for you and they just become automatic, then you don't have to worry about it. And I can work my business in an hour or 2 after the kids go to bed, and I can put my phone away when I'm with them and know that, I'm in charge and I'm on top of what's going on.
Awesome.
So the next thing we want to talk about, so I have my planner and I put, in here all the dates. So I'm going to reach out to people. Well, what do you say? And it's funny because I didn't realize that I was doing something until a couple weeks ago when Wendy was on, I think it was a team call or something. And she said, stop reaching out to people and saying, how are you doing? Because it's just like a greeting. It's like a tip of the morning to you. You don't have to answer people. You can say, how are you doing? And people will say, I'm fine. And you move on. And I think a lot of people get dissuaded by that, or she doesn't want to talk to me. Or I know for me in the beginning, follow-up was terrifying, because when you follow up, you're opening yourself up to them saying, I'm unhappy. And I know for me, that's the biggest fear. Like, I just want to help people. I believe in these products so badly. I know they can help you if you just give me enough time and you take them consistently. So the follow-up is terrifying, because people might say, I'm unhappy, or I don't like it. Or they might ask you a question you don't know how to answer. And so if you just say, how you doing? They can just say, I'm fine. And then you can let it go, and you sort of lose that connection. And so purposeful check-in is really important. You know what I mean? So like the words that you use are important. So go ahead.
What are people supposed to do if they get asked a question they don't know the answer to? Because you said it.
You go to your phone. You ask for help. So the words you use are really important. So, I don't follow scripts or anything like that, but it's just important to sort of think ahead about what you're asking. So that first time when I check in with people and they've just drank Slim, they're not going to have any amazing discoveries. And if I reach out and say, what did the Slim do for you? Well, most likely it did nothing that they can tell. And if you ask that, you're setting them up to go, well, should it have done something? Is it not working? I don't feel anything. So I just ask, what'd you think of the taste? Do you like it? And then that's a question they can answer. Yeah, I didn't like it. If they say they didn't like it, it gives you the opportunity right away to go, that's okay. I have tons of ideas for you. Add some lemon, add some lime, try it in coconut water. How about seltzer? Or people with really sensitive stomachs, I'll tell them to mix it in an ounce of water and just get it down, and then then drink lots of clear water after it. So you have that opportunity to do that right away, rather than a couple weeks in, they tell you, I don't take it every day because I don't like it. And then when I check in with them the second time, sometimes I use that trick of shaken versus stirred as different. So if they were doing their half a Slim and they were shaking it every day, I'll say, oh, do me a favor tomorrow, have it in a glass and stir it. And then when I follow up with them, I can say, well, what'd you think? Did you see a difference? It gives me a way to talk to them about something other than how are you feeling? Because that's not an appropriate question yet, but you want to, you're almost interviewing with them. Like, you want to start developing that relationship and pulling them in and setting them up for the fact they need to talk to you and they need to, be in good communication with you.
I don't think everybody knows about the shaken and stirred. So what Chandra's referencing is that some people think if you shake it, it has more of the which flavor?
Watermelon when you shake it.
Mm-hmm. And if you stir it, it's more of the
berry.
Raspberry. So I think if it's shaken, it tastes sweeter and you taste more watermelon. And then if it's stirred, it's not as sweet and you taste more raspberry. And that's my personal opinion.
When that controversy came up, I made my 10-year-old figure it out. I was like, here's your homework assignment for today. Figure out scientifically why it tastes different. And he did.
Really?
He did. So it'll take too long today, but I can explain.
Oh, I want to hear this later. I'm so excited. I didn't notice the difference, but I just thought that I would tell people what you meant, because then they'd be all sidetracked for the next 5 minutes trying to figure out what you meant when you said that. So,
so you start asking questions, and then whenever I follow up with people, I always give them a definitive time when I'm going to check in again. So if they've been taking one BioCleanse and they're not quite pooping enough, I'll say, okay, take 2 BioCleanse for 4 days, and I'm going to check in on you. So I tell them I'm going to check in on you in 4 days, and I make sure that in 4 days I write, Amber poop, whatever. I'm going to check in on Amber about her poop. And then again, you're creating that relationship with them. In 4 days, when you follow through and you do what you said you were going to do, and you call them, you're continuing to build that relationship with them. The other thing that I do is I have a big notebook. And you can do this on the computer if you want. I'm a handwritten kind of gal. And I have a page for every person. And I actually have, this is my little code. You'll love this because I have kids. When a person becomes a customer, I put a little smiley face up there. When they're a prospect, there's no smiley face. And I write down.
So cute.
And I write down everything we talk about. I write down what I recommend to them. I write down what they're complaining about. On this side, I write down what they're struggling with, their medications and all of that. And this is so insanely useful for so many reasons. If you have someone that comes to you and says, like in the beginning, I would panic when people would come and say, nothing's happening. And I would call Amber and go, oh my God, nothing's happening. And she would go, well, tell me about it. And then I would read it to her and say, okay, well, they went on vacation and they didn't take any of their product. And then I told them to increase to ProBio 5 and they didn't. And then I checked in 2 weeks later and they're still at 1 ProBio 5. And then even just reading it, I know what's going on. And then I can reach back to them and say, well, we kind of lost contact here. And then you forgot to do this. And they go, okay, I'll try it again. And
for everybody watching, that was my exact process. My notebook looks exactly like that, has from the beginning. Never, ever invest in something super fancy unless you're really going to use it, because that is exactly how you do this. And it's just the simplest way.
And the other benefit of this too is that if you're on our team and you're doing these mini Zooms the way we do, so when if I have a customer that has some questions, or if I just want to make sure I'm doing the best I can for them, I'll schedule a mini Zoom with Amber and Wendy. And people get on there and you ask them questions, they cannot answer them. Like Wendy will say, how long have you been at 4 ProBio 5? And they just glaze over. You know what I mean? And so I can tell them. Like, we don't have to spend tons of time trying to guess or trying to remember. I know exactly when they've upped their doses. I know exactly when they had that big, flush out from BioCleanse. I know exactly when everything happened. And so then we can use that time really effectively for Amber and Wendy to answer their questions or educate them or, sort of troubleshoot, because I have the information in front of me.
Okay, a 10-second plug. If you have not started doing these mini Zooms with partners, you are missing out on something huge. Not only has it been, just a learning experience as we're learning from our colleagues, people who are already in Plexus, they're they've got questions that they ask. You learn so much from it that way. But to be able to have someone who is saying, I'm really not liking it, I'm not feeling anything, and they have to admit in front of 2 more people that, well, I really didn't take the product last week. One thing that came up was we're asking these questions, these follow-up questions, and someone said, well, I actually went to sleep and forgot to take the ProBio 5, and I had such a stomach ache. Well, and it was almost like something that they never would have thought of, related or connected, and it came out in a mini Zoom because we were having that conversation. You guys, you've got to add this to your arsenal of things. So
because everyone that's watching doesn't know who we are and how that structure looks, I'm just going to say that since the plug for the mini Zoom happened. So the way that that's done is you want to keep it small and intimate. And then, so I'm Wendy's upline. Wendy is Amber's upline, and then Amber is Chandra's upline. And so they're keeping it where it's Chandra will bring her client and then her 2 upline, which would then be Amber and Wendy. And so that's how that structure looks. And if you want to do these, they're very successful. Try to set that up with your upline, and if you need my help or anything getting that started, or Wendy's if you're in Wendy's downline, and so forth, we will help you get those started. So
So
I would also like to say that when I send my start instructions to somebody, so they've ordered and they're waiting for their first shipment to come in, I send them their start instructions, how I want them to start based on our discussion. I put in there that in about a month, maybe sooner, depending on what's going on, that we're going to have one of these Zoom calls. So I set it up from the very beginning that that is an expectation as part of our follow-up and part of their journey. And I let them know that, you know what, 2 heads are always better than 1, and 3 are better than 2. I don't always have all of the answers, and I have other people that can help answer those questions. We have different ways of viewing things, and we work as a team to support each other. And not only does that show the person that you're working with the kind of support that they get as a customer, but if they were ever inclined to do the business side of Plexus, they're seeing the support and the teamwork that they would get as an ambassador as well, and that we really are a one Plexus community. But again, I do set that expectation from the very beginning that these mini Zooms that we've implemented within our team is part of our follow-up. And to get on and talk with each other like we are now, face to face, and to have a real conversation when we can't actually meet in person, it's very effective. It's so much more productive. And yeah, things come out in that conversation that you just can't get through Messenger or even on the telephone. So when somebody is having detoxing problems, die-off issues, maybe they're not being consistent or they're still having health struggles, we can come together as a small group and kind of dissect what's going on and find maybe what went wrong, if anything did go wrong, or where we just need to go from there to continue to move forward and get, the progress that we're looking for. And it is very effective. It's very efficient. So I think it's something that everybody should be doing.
Mm-hmm. No,
it helps with retention.
Absolutely.
Handling it that way, people feel like they have more skin in the game and they're more interested in sticking with it because there's people on that journey with them.
It's very easy to ignore a text message or a messenger on Facebook. It's very easy not to answer the phone when somebody calls you and you're busy and you don't want to talk to them. But when you get on one of these calls and you're seeing people face to face and you make a friend, you make a connection, there's a relationship. It's much harder to quit on somebody that you know, and it's really hard to quit on somebody that you might like.
Yep.
All right, Shonda, that's
pretty likable.
Okay, so I've sort of given you, the way that I do it. And I just want to reiterate that I follow up a lot. I follow up every time someone's supposed to increase BioCleanse, every time they're supposed to increase ProBio 5. And I move my clients very, very slowly. And in the beginning, I used to I knew it was the right way to do it. And I was doing it that way, but I felt strange about it. I felt like I almost felt guilty anytime I would get on a Zoom with Angela and Wendy and they would say, how many ProBio 5 are you on? And they would say 2. How long you've been taking it? 6 weeks. I'll be like, oh, what am I doing wrong? But I very quickly learned that there's no certificate for getting to the end of this race fastest. And I think that I have been so successful in retaining almost all of my clients because I am supporting them, but I'm also moving them very slowly. And so they're feeling less die-off, they're feeling less detox, and they're invested in the process because they're not racing towards, some conclusion that I'm promising was going to be there at, some determined point in time. So if your clients are moving slowly, giving you permission to keep moving them slowly and just keep taking care of them, and you're not doing a bad job, you're doing a great job of taking care of them. So I follow people through all of that. And then, there can sort of become a dead time when they're, say they're taking the triplex and they're at 4 ProBio 5 and they're cruising along and they're doing okay, but there's not a lot of action anymore. Like they know how much BioCleanse they need. They're at 4 ProBio 5. They're just sort of coasting. But it's really important to continue that relationship because the farther they get away from you, the more likely, the husband might come in and go, how much are you spending on this? And they haven't talked about anybody in a while, so their belief may be dwindling. They haven't seen, they're not at the results point yet where they're feeling great. So it's really important to keep following up. but you also don't want to keep checking in and saying, how are you feeling? Because they might feel the same way they felt 2 weeks before. And then again, they're going to start to question, well, am I on the wrong path because I'm not feeling anything? So just never miss an opportunity to follow up. If there's a holiday, if it's their birthday, if there's a new product out that you want to tell them about. I also always reach out to people before their subscription day, whether they're wholesale customers or their preferred customers, because I find so many times people have seen a post of mine or they've seen an email from Plexus about a new product or just a different product. And in their mind, they're thinking they want to buy it next month, but they have no idea when their date happens, and they don't realize their product shipped until they get a shipping notification. And they go, oh crap, I was going to order that this month, but oh well, I'll wait till next month. And it's just another opportunity to reach out and let them know. And so again, for a long time, I was constantly every day combing my detailed genealogy and like going through and trying to figure out which one was coming up next. So this is what I do. Every month on the first of the month, I go through my detailed genealogy and I just make a list. And so this is my list for this month. And so these are my ambassadors and these are my customers. And I just have a date and their name. And when I reach out to them, I cross it off. And even if they don't respond to me, if I send them a message and go, hey, your convenience order is about to flip. You had mentioned Vital Biome. If you need my help adding that, let me know. If they don't respond to me, I cross it off anyway because I did my job. But then if they get back to me, then it's one more sort of way to contact them. But then if nothing else, at the end of the month, I've talked to everybody at least once, because I've reached out to them, on a couple days before their convenience order happened. And luckily, hopefully now it'll be a lot easier to manage those now that we have this fancy new website. And then
3 notebooks. I just want to make sure. So we're at 3 notebooks. You've got your one that's your calendar.
This is the same notebook.
Okay.
So in the front, I have all my customers, and then I just use the last page.
I'm more like that. Yes.
And then, this will be December's, convenience order.
I'm asking because I know the questions people are going to ask me.
Yeah.
Covering it before we end the recording.
Yeah, I have 1 planner and 1 notebook.
Awesome.
The other thing that's also, I think, really beneficial about keeping in touch with people this much is that these same people that are your clients would ideally become your team members. Like if it was an ideal world, they would all become really happy with the products and come to you and say, I love these products, now I want to sell them. And then your relationship would sort of change from just getting them the products to start mentoring them in the business. And so I almost feel like as I'm supporting them as clients, I'm almost like interviewing for being their team leader. You know what I mean? And I want them to want to work with me. And so that is part of saying, I'm going to check in with you in 4 days and then checking in with them in 4 days.
And the other thing you're doing is you're teaching them, should that happen, and they're going to duplicate. I know that it's the truth that people do very much do what was done with them.
Yeah.
And I hear things from my downline. I'm like, oh, that's what I said. And then 4 levels down, that's what they're saying. It's very important. It's awesome that you're teaching people that way.
Yeah. And even, along the line, you can just start sort of sprinkling things in. Like one of my favorite phrases is, have you been tempted to tell anybody else how great you feel? And so not even necessarily saying, hey, give me some referrals, but like, have you been tempted to tell people that you're not napping anymore? Have you to tell people you're pooping every day? And a lot of people are scared and it takes them a while to share. But again, the more you sort of, put those little feelers in little by little, it's usually easier than just sort of like a big conversation about working the business.
Yeah, I like that.
So you said that on the second day after they've started, it's a specific question of, so what did you think of the taste? Not, hey, how are you doing? Hey, did it make you sick, right? You're saying, hey, how did you like the taste? And then you talk about switching it up. What happens that second week? So are you actually asking questions, or are you just saying, okay, you're going to start the ProBio 5 tomorrow, and this is what we can expect, or this is what, so how does that look for you? And what's going to go in your notebook, I should say.
Yeah. So I try to always tell them what to expect and why we're taking it. You know what I mean? And that goes back to doing a really good assessment and knowing why they're taking the products. So I try to connect to, when we talked, you said that you struggled with constipation. So here's the piece where we're going to attack that. We're going to start with BioCleanse. And I want you to take one, and I want you to, look for these things. Or sometimes if I know someone's really struggling with sugar cravings and control of how much they're eating, I'll tell them, I want you to do a full slim, but I want you to pay really close attention to how much you're eating. So if every Friday you usually have 6 slices of pizza, I want you to stop at 4 and just think, am I full? And if you're not, okay, eat 6 pieces. But if you are full, only eat 4. You know what I mean? So just trying to give them little like conscious ways to think about what is happening, because it's those subtle changes that are happening. Like when you hear from people 2 months in, nothing's happened. Well, something's happened. It's just that it's happened slowly. And sometimes those things are too subtle. We all live busy lives. People are still moving right along, regardless of starting Plexus. And so me knowing as much as I possibly can about them in the beginning helps me follow up. So I can say, I know when we talked, you were taking a nap every single day. Do you still feel like you need that nap? Or whatever it is, like being really very, and that also makes them feel like you're being personalized. You're being very individual. They don't feel like you have a follow-up number 4 in your sticky notes and you're just copy and pasting it at a certain time. And that really helps people to want to be open. And I also try as best as I can. And as you move on in the business and start to work with people that you don't know, like in the beginning, we all work with our aunts and our uncles and our friends. And so you know them personally. It gets a little bit more difficult as you start to work with strangers, but I try my darndest to not only talk to them about Plexus. So send them a holiday card, or if I see them post something on Facebook, I'll comment on it, but I might message them too, and just something silly like, oh my God, that Halloween costume was so cute. Where'd you get it? Just something so that when you go back and you look at your Facebook message list, it's not just, like, hi, I'm Plexus. How are you doing? How are you pooping? How are you napping? You know what I mean? Because then it can start to feel really clinical. And so I try my best to do that as best I can, just kind of squeeze those things.
I think a lot of that goes back to the whole just relationship building and trust building, and people that come to you and they choose to go with you versus, whoever else they might have know who does Plexus, is because they know, like, and trust you. And again, we could have strangers and referrals and things like that. So it is really important to kind of get to know them outside of Plexus and just create that connection as well. So you talked about some of the things that you asked them in terms of, are they seeing improvements here and there? I know that some of the questions that I always ask, this is just me personally during my follow-up, is I always ask them, even though I may know what they're taking or what they should be taking based on, our previous conversations, I will say, how many BioCleanse are you taking? How many ProBio 5 are you on? And how often are you pooping? And that's going to be part of my conversation. And when they respond to me, I'm going to get a lot of information from that, because I'm going to know where they are in their journey, if they're not pooping enough, if they're pooping too much, and we can kind of adjust that. And also then I'm going to ask them about their die-off. And I can't just say, are you having any die-off? Because most people have absolutely no idea what that means. So I'm going to ask them, how have you been feeling this past week, or since we went up a ProBio 5? Have you experienced any additional headaches, any rashes, any fatigue or brain fog? That's me personally, and I know that some people may feel like I'm putting ideas in their head, but for somebody that doesn't know what die-off is and may not truly understand it, those seem to be the most common ones. And I know that I'm not going to increase their ProBio 5 if they're experiencing any of those symptoms, because their body's not handling what we're already giving it. And for me, that's a really important part of the follow-up that I do with people.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that we've been working together now, and I get to see us doing this. So those of you watching, as you're doing your follow-up, it is okay to get someone up to 3 ProBio 5 and realize that's too much, and to back them down.
You mean, I know what you mean, but I want to make sure that you say it. When you say too much, you don't mean too much for that person forever. You mean
temporarily.
Temporarily.
Because Chandra's like a genius at explaining this in layman's terms in a way that it's digestible. It's what you're asking of your body, working through those toxins. That maybe 3 at that point is too much. And I'll just give an example. When my mom is a fabulous example of this, with so many health issues over the course of her lifetime. She was on 2 ProBio 5 for a very long time, and very stubborn about moving forward at any point. And when we did, she was on 2 for a long time. And when we got to 3, she immediately, 2 weeks in, had a surge of things beginning to happen. And I was like, whoa, okay, Mom. Mama, we're going to back you back down by another half, and we're going to give you a break. And not forever. She now understands that we have to get to 4. So I wanted to make sure to say that, because we don't ever want someone to get the idea that a maintenance dose, which is 2, is really going to be sufficient. It will not be if you have an overgrowth, which 80-something% of us do. And I think that's probably a lowball estimate.
Right. Thank you for clarifying, because it really is, when we talk about we're moving and it seems too much too fast, and they're experiencing something that's uncomfortable. And we're saying, as Chandra said it so nicely, that, there is no certificate for getting there fastest. So our goal is to have the best results without having to go through being uncomfortable. We all still need to function every day. And so we find out, yeah, you might be really tough and can push through this feeling, but you don't need to. It's not necessary if it's hindering your work or your day or the way you parent, that you're able to parent. So we can slow it down. We can just back it down, get you ready to go, and then, start again. And I think it just, again, it sets up this relationship that we are not a bunch of salespeople trying to build numbers and get you to buy more products. It really shows this caring relationship of, we want what's best. Our goal is to have the best testimony possible, and to do it in a way that you're comfortable, that you would either send someone to me or that you're going to want to start telling people yourself.
Yeah. And this call, so we're going to really hear mostly about follow-up and throw that back to Chandra, but just for anybody watching, she's got an incredible video that was done about all things detox. And so if you're wanting to know more about that process and how we would handle that when we start to hear those things, that's available to you also.
Yes.
Well, I want to say 2 things about that. I think that one is, it's really important when you tell people, like you were saying, Angela, that we're just backing you down temporarily. It's not that this is too much for you, or that it's, it's
right.
important what words you use. And I also think it's important not just to take a break, but to take an active break. Like, what are we doing during that break, and why are we doing it? Well, the reason that you're not feeling well on 3 Probio 5 is because your liver is just not keeping up. Your liver is just not able to do all of the big work that we're asking it to do. So we're going to back down to 2, and we're going to give your liver a break, and we're going to give it some of the support it needs to get back up to a high functioning space where you're feeling good, and we can put you back up to 3 Probio 5, and then that will work better. And it's helping people understand why their body can't handle 3 right now, but it might be able to in a couple weeks. You know what I mean? Like, that's not, unless you're sort of in the natural healing supplement world, that doesn't really make a lot of sense unless you really clearly explain it to people, and then give them the detox strategies they need. Either use that video or whatever it takes, but give them the ideas, because a lot of people don't know. Everyone knows the word detox, but they don't know how to do it or what it means.
And I always use this whenever I have to back somebody down. I use it as a way to build belief in what this journey is that they're on, build belief in the products, and give them a little bit of education. So I do set them up, like Chandra was saying, their body is not filtering out the toxins as quickly as the Probio 5 is killing the candida, and those toxins are being released. When you can explain that to somebody and let them know your liver just can't keep up right now, so we're going to stop it for a couple of days. You're going to see within 1 to 3 days that you feel dramatically better very quickly. And the reason for that is we're no longer killing off the candida, or we're not killing it off at as high of a rate as we were. So your liver is going to be able to play the catch-up game, filter out all those extra toxins, and then that's why you're feeling better. And when that actually happens, this light bulb goes off, and they're like, holy crap. Like, that's really what's going on in my body. And then we can move forward just at a different pace for them. And I know a lot of people have talked about doing maybe half of a Probio 5, and that is an option. But what I found where we're not wasting any product is, let's say you're trying to get them from 2 to 3. You can go 2 days on a dose of 2 and then take 3. So you can go 2, 2, and 3. 2, 2, and 3, and then you can go 2, 3, 2, 3, and then you can go 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 3. So you're gradually increasing them. And again, you decide on when those increases are made, by following up with them and assessing how they are feeling, and are they experiencing those die-off symptoms or any other die-off symptoms that was the cause that you needed to back them down in the first place. And I know we kind of got a little bit off topic, but really it does relate to follow-up, because if you're not following up and asking the right questions, you're not going to know what's happening, and you're not going to know how to guide them, and they're going to fall away because they're going to think that Plexus is making them sick, when really it's finally getting those toxins out of their body that caused their health issues in the first place.
Right.
I'm so glad you said that, because that's exactly the point. And I was thinking it as you were talking about how important it was to capture that moment where you say, we're going to take a break, we're going to step back, here's what's going to happen in a couple of days. The difference between you being the one to set that up and that happening versus them quitting it and saying, oh, I feel so much better. The Plexus was horrible for me.
Oh, that's huge.
The difference right there is huge. And so this all plays a role in that follow-up process, in that relationship building process. It's why this is so important. It's why we're talking to you guys.
Yeah. Right.
So the last thing that I think is really important about follow-up and the whole process of working with people through this is sort of learning how to take people where they are. And that was a learning process for me, because, I have some clients who are just in the thick of die-off and they're miserable. And if I was in their place, I would cry uncle and pull back, but they don't want to. They want to, my husband's one of them. He just wants to bull forward. He's going to take 4 probiotic 5 no matter what happens, and he's going to get through it. And then I have other people that, I sort of laugh. They're on 2 probiotic 5 and they're absolutely miserable. And, like, it's the worst thing in the world. I can't do any more. I need your help. And then I ask them what's going on, and they say, I don't have a lack of motivation and I'm a little fatigued. And I want to giggle, be like, are you kidding me? Do you know what my husband's going through? But you have to take a deep breath and know that that's their reality. That's his reality and that's her reality. And they're both just as valid. And it's my job to deal with them very differently. And so she may need to back down. If that's a big deal for her and that's impacting her life, that little lack of motivation, then I need to deal with that as important to her. And if he wants to bowl through and, suffer through, then I need to, really focus on detox with him and let him do that. And so I think it's really important, through every stage of this, to take people where they are, to give them only as much information as they're asking you for, to support them as much as they want. I have a couple older clients who need to talk to me every day. And I do have to set some boundaries, you know what I mean? Because, if you're going to call me every day, it has to be a 2-minute call. But if that's what they need in the beginning, then that's what they need. And it's not always any troubleshooting or information. It's just telling them, yes, you're on the right track. I appreciate you trusting me. And, so it's really about learning to take people where they're at and realizing that everyone's reality is, perception, is their reality. And just, taking them from where they're at and helping them get, to the next step.
Awesome. I am so, just so thankful, first of all, for this team, for the 2 of you ladies, for, spending time. And, the fact that we're here is because Angela was willing to open her mouth and share with me, because I needed Plexus. I didn't know it at the time, but because she knew that it was going to help me and was willing to share, and whether it was out of fear or that she just cared so much about me, and I don't mean out of fear that she contacted me, but that she stepped through that anyway. For those of you that are watching this, absolutely, you have to know that I did not get to this place in 2 weeks where I understood detox. I did not understand Probio 5 in 2 weeks. So if you're new, you need to do some research. Look up the ingredients. It doesn't take hours and hours. You can look up an ingredient and catch a really good article about it and understand it. You can watch videos. There are all kinds of ways to learn and not expect that you are going to be able to respond like Amber and like Chandra have been able to do in these videos in your first couple of weeks doing it. It's a learning process. Give yourself grace and ask questions when you need to. And just get people connected with others so that if you don't know the answers, find someone who does. Get them connected. Let that relationship happen, because you will learn from that and you will continue to grow. It's a really simple business, but it's not easy. You cannot just give them products and be a GNC and say, okay, well, good luck. I'll talk to you in a couple of months and see how you're doing. Okay. So
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Okay, did we cover everything we wanted to cover in this one?
I think so.
Well, thank you guys for listening, and I'm sure we'll be back to bring you some other step of the process at some point. And thank you all for sharing how you've done this business, and I'm really proud of all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.